Good evening, guys. Welcome to Esther's Nesting Box. As you will see laying here right in front of you is our brand new custom paint aprons. These were included with the August box for all of our subscribing members. This was your bonus gift this month. I love these. Of course, you know I wear a paint apron most of the time, and I thought it would be fun to make all of you paint aprons, and then I thought it would be fun to take pictures in a few months and see all the different color paints that you might have on your apron. So this was your free gift this month. Don't worry, if you're not a part of the nesting box yet, you will have the opportunity to join again in January of 2022, and you will also have the opportunity to get one of our exclusive paint aprons at that time again. But for now, these are exclusive just to our nesting box members. So if you are joining me tonight, you are more than likely here to learn how to paint this beautiful piece, this pumpkin pie sign. This sign was our August box project. It is so fun. We're going to talk about several different techniques. Let me see if I can get it in focus. So we are going to learn probably the funnest technique you guys are going to learn tonight is how to make this gorgeous faux rust that we put on these letters. You can kind of see if I turn it that way. Isn't that cool looking? You're going to learn how to do this with just a couple of everyday items that you probably have in your house, and then you can use this technique in the future on some of your own projects. We're also going to talk about highlighting and shading on the pumpkin and the banner. So that will be fun. Let's take a look at what was included in your box this month. So set that project off for just a second. You'll notice that this month you guys received the larger box. Let me see if I can scan out. Are we going to refocus? There we go. Okay. So, oh. Good night. Maybe not. Okay, in your box this month, and it was the 14-inch box, you guys will receive two different size boxes from time to time, the 12-inch box, the 14-inch box. So in this box, you should have received everything that you're seeing here. So we've got our wood blanks, the pumpkin pie sign, your easel. This is your toolkit for the month. It included 3 brand new brushes that you've never gotten before, a foam brush, a white makeup sponge, and then this little container right here that has cinnamon in it. So this is your one disclaimer. If you are by any chance allergic to cinnamon, do not open this package. I went ahead and put it in a special container that has an airtight seal, and then put it inside of this cellophane bag so that if there were any allergies, you would know right off the bat, do not open this if you have a cinnamon allergy, and definitely not an airborne cinnamon allergy. We can work with you on another possible method to create this if that's the case. So this is your toolkit for the month. Remember, the foam brush and the little white makeup sponge are disposable, but these other brushes are brushes that you will keep and use in the future. You also received your little package of baby wipes. This was your 2 different orange colors. They look very similar right here on camera, but you're going to see how we use those a little bit differently. And then everybody got a restock of your base paint colors, the white and the black, and a new thing of wood glue. This month we also went ahead and included a bottle of brown for our staining, our faux stain technique. You also received your written instructions and your white piece of packing paper that you can use as your backdrop for your table for painting. Now, let me go ahead and move this box. If you ordered the insert of the month, then you would have received that. Let me get this out of the way, guys. That in your box as well. Insert of the month this month was this cute little pumpkin, 3D pumpkin insert that will go inside your interchangeable shiplap sign. If you were a brand new subscriber and had not previously purchased or got the interchangeable shiplap sign when it was part of our subscription, then you ordered this project, you would have gotten this in there as well. So this project was a part of our original subscription members project several months ago. And it was a fun project. It's the base sign, and then you can choose to add on any of the interchangeable rounds that you want each month for a very small price. You can add that on, and then you have different interchangeables to go in your sign as you move forward. Obviously, if you were not a part of the membership at the point that we did this project, then it's hard for you to take advantage of the bonus piece each month. So what we've done is we've made this kit available to any member at any time that they sign up for the membership. This kit is just $24.99. It's the original cost that the original members paid way back when. And if you choose to add that on, you do this right on the website. You can also then add on any of the previous inserts that you want onto that. The biggest difference here is that inserts and past shiplap kit get checked out on the website. Your monthly box, you set up that one time on PayPal, and you don't have to have a PayPal account to do that. PayPal is just the program that we use to process the reoccurring payments each month. You can use any major credit card, debit card to do that, no big deal. But you set that up one time, and then it reoccurs, the charge reoccurs every single month on the exact same day until you choose to cancel the membership. So those were included if you chose to add those on this month. And the only other thing is if you are a brand new subscriber this month for the first time, you did get a chip brush in your kit because all of my previous subscribers have a chip brush from several months ago, and we will use this today as a part of our project. So I went ahead and included that for our brand new subscribers that jumped on board with us this month. Okay, I think that covers everything that was included. So I am going to show you, every month when I do these tutorials, I show you how to use the piece that I send in your box for you to use to complete the project. But then I also show you if I have an easier way to do that and where you might be able to purchase that at. Obviously, with a membership, I can't include all of the more expensive and little fancier tools that you might be able to go out and buy for yourself, but I can't always include that for all of my members. So this month, I wanted to show you this little thing. You are going to see me using this tonight for painting the backdrop of our sign right here. Now, for you guys, I have included this foam brush that you can use with your white paint to paint that whole backdrop. But if you are a regular DIY crafter and you subscribe to my kit monthly and you want a quicker, easier way to do some of those large pieces where you can do the coverage on the backdrop, then I wanted to show you this. So I purchased these at Home Depot, but my guess is a Menards, a Lowe's, maybe even an Ace Hardware might have these. They're like $4 a piece. And so it's like a mini disposable roller. You can see it's just plastic, but I have found that as soon as you finish using it, if you put this lid back on, then it will actually stay good as long as you get a good seal on it. Now, a lot of times I'll put the lid back on and then I'll stick it in a large, like, gown size baggie too. But if you get a good seal on it, it will stay good without having to wash it in between every single paint. So I have several of these, and I keep them on hand for all my different colors that I use regularly. You guys, if you're not painting as much as I am, you might just pick up one of these and then rinse it out, wash your roller out in between each use, and then you could use it. Doesn't matter if you're doing black, white, brown, whatever. So anyway, you're going to see how I use this tonight. But just know that for you guys, this foam brush came in your kit, and it's the same concept. White paint on the brush, and you're just going to go over until you get the coverage that you want. This is just going to be quicker, and it's going to help us get through our tutorial faster. So I'm going to be using that tonight. Let me go ahead and pull out my blank pieces. Now you will notice that my blank that I'm working with tonight looks a little bit different than the ones that came in your kit. So when I was trying to prepare these, we had a little mistake when we cut this one, and it ended up cutting a little bit bigger than what they should be for the size of the sign. And so I thought, I'm not going to waste that wood and redo it. I'm just going to go ahead and paint this one up as my sample tonight, and then ship this one up to my mama. So she'll be able to keep the one that's a little bit bigger, and it'll work out okay. The reason we didn't go with this size is because I wanted this to be able to sit on a certain area in my house, and it was like on my coffee bar, which you guys have probably seen pictures of that, and the height of this just worked really, really good, a little bit smaller than this. This looked a little bit too big for the area that I thought that most people would probably put it. So I think this will be really cute on a small shelf, like in your kitchen, a coffee bar area, maybe even just on your countertop as a part of a little vignette pushed off in the corner or on the back. But I really liked this size better for you all, but I just didn't want to waste anything. So I did go ahead and I'm just going to use this miscut, I guess you would say, today. So, okay, let's get started. First thing you're going to do is go ahead and disassemble your wood pieces as they come. So you can pop off your frame, set that off to the side. We won't do anything with that for a few minutes. This next part, this base that holds all of your letters and your two banners, we're not going to use that base for anything other than this was the easiest way for me to ship the kit to you without all these little letters getting lost. And it also gives you a sturdy surface to work with when you're painting and working on these pieces. So once we pop them out of here, you're going to just discard this piece of wood that has the void holes in it. But the way that I shipped it to you, and let's see if I can do it without dumping everything out, was I put masking tape on the back so that when you lifted this up, none of these things would fall through the back. And so we're going to use this as our work surface when we start working on that. But for now, let's go ahead and set that off to the side. All we're going to be working with first is the main backboard that comes with your piece. This is the bottom piece. It's all one piece. This banner and this pumpkin are scored into the wood. The letters are scored into the wood. Original recipe is engraved into the wood. So you'll notice that it feels a little bit different. And then this bottom banner piece is scored into the wood as well. So all we're going to do right now is really just get a light coat of paint on the back of this whole thing. Go ahead and grab your white, which it looks like this in this little bottle. This is my black, but grab your white like this. You can choose to put your paint on a piece of aluminum foil or the paper plate that came with it. Either one is fine, but get out some white paint. I'm just going to use the white paint that I already have in this little roller kit. Just get a little bit on there. You don't want too much. When we're coating this backer board, I am going for a very rustic look. So I don't want a super thick coverage. As I go over these score marks, I'm going to go over very lightly. Same with the engraving, because anything that I get down into these grooves, if I get too much in there, I'm going to have to use that toothpick that came in your little paint package to kind of clear that out. So we're just going to real lightly roll over the piece until we get some coverage. I am barely pressing. I'm really not pressing down hard at all. I think that's important for you guys to know, because sometimes it probably looks like I'm really pushing down, but I'm not. So I'm just real lightly going over this. I can't remember on this one that I did, I used the foam brush for the way that you guys will do it. Obviously it takes a little bit longer than the way I'm rolling it. So just know that when I'm ready to move on to the next step, you may have to pause the video for a second until you get caught up. But these videos usually turn out to be over an hour long, and I know we've got some really special techniques to work on tonight. So I want to try really, really hard to speed this up, which is why I decided to just do this method, Plus, I thought I'll show you this, and then if you guys want to invest in one of these handy dandy little things for your craft projects, then you would know how I use it. So I'm not worried about every single bit of the board being covered heavily. I'm just trying to get a light coverage on most of it. We will let it dry and then take a look and see if we need to put another light coat over the top. It's probably more likely when you're using your foam brush on it that you'll need to put another light coat over the top, just because it doesn't cover as easy, so it takes a little bit more to do that. So I just kind of keep turning my piece, but you'll see that if you're going over it really lightly, like I am, light-handed, and I haven't added any more paint onto this since I first loaded it up. So it's covering really well. Another reason why I like these little things. They're fast and they cover well, but it's not really getting down into those grooves. When I work on those edging, I'm just going real light because I don't want to get a bunch of white paint down on my beautiful scored edges. Okay, I really think this one actually looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here and cover it and set it off to the side. We will let it dry for a few minutes and then see if I need another coat on there. But for now, I'm kind of thinking we may get by with just this one this time on the roll. Again, don't expect to get by with that when you're brushing it on because it is different. I thought I had another toothpick, but let me open this one up real quick. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just take the toothpick out of my little paint bag that we sent you. And we'll talk about these paints here in a second, but remember that these are heat sealed, and so they really should not ever spill. I'm not going to say that I haven't ever made a mistake when I was sealing and missed a corner, but because of that, I go ahead and put them in one of these cellophane bags as well, so it doesn't ruin your whole project. Okay, so for now, take your toothpick and just, if you have any paint in those score lines, just real lightly go across those score lines just to clear out that paint. You see what I did there? And all that's for is so you have really good crisp score lines, especially on your pumpkin. Your pumpkin is the one piece on this that doesn't have a 3D element to go over the top. The banner, the letters, and the banner down here, they all have 3D elements to go over the top, but the pumpkin doesn't. So I definitely want to make sure that the score lines on my pumpkin are nice and cleaned out because we're going to hand paint that, and I want to have clear lines when I'm painting that. So, okay, that looks good to me. So we're going to set this off to the side and let it dry for just a few minutes, and then we're going to check it and see if we need another coat of paint or if we are good to just go ahead and sand it and move on to the next step. So if you're following along on your written instructions, some people learn best with written instructions, some people learn best with the video, and so I try to do a combination of both. But if you're following along with your written instructions, we're going to go ahead and skip down to step 3. We will need to go back to step 1 when this is dry just to do the light sanding and to clear off all the dust. But for now, we're just going to skip off to step 3. So for step 3, you're going to want to pull out your base piece that has your banner up here on top and a baby wipe. Anybody who's been with me for a while knows that we use a lot of baby wipes when we paint together. This is called the faux stain technique, and I will review how to do this since we have some new members this month. It's not hard at all. So get out whatever you're going to put your paint on. You could put your paint right on this paper. I like to use aluminum foil pieces, and so I'm going to put just a little bit of my brown paint on the aluminum foil pieces. Now for this one, for this color brown, you want to get out that little bottle. Again, that's your base brown that we use for all of our stain. There is a brown that was included with your little paint packets. That's what we're going to use to create that rust. This one is called a nutmeg color. So we're not using this to stain with. We're using that for the rust. We're using that little brown bottle for our staining. So get out your brown paint, put just a tiny bit on whatever surface you're using. That's way more than what I need, but these bottles come out faster. Grab one of your baby wipes and kind of fold it over to a smaller area, and then I like to just kind of put my finger up in there just a little bit. Get just a little bit of brown paint on there. You can dab it off on your baby wipe, and so you don't have too much. And then we're going to go across this banner up here, the cinnamon, clove, ginger, and nutmeg banner. We're only going to stain that. And the baby wipe and the paint will work together, and it will create this stain look on this wood. The benefits of this, obviously, color selection. You can work with any color that you want and make it a stain. You're not going to the store and getting a special stain mixed each time you need something. With paint like this, there's no smell. You can use the tiniest bit and not have to worry about buying a whole bottle or container. I do suggest to put on light coats until you achieve how dark you want it to be. This is perfect for me. So what I'm going to do now is just grab a small bottom part and just kind of wipe across, getting off any excess stain that I don't want on there. Now, yours are set up differently so that these two aren't so close together. Mine is set up a little bit close together, and as you can see, I got a little bit of brown paint on there. I'm just going to use the baby wipe to kind of wash that all off. That's no big deal. But that's why I redid it for you guys, and I put this down at the bottom so you weren't working so close together. So that is really all that we have to do to stain that piece. So now we just let that dry, and then when we pop that out, it's just going to have that beautiful rich brown stain to it. We will come back later and do some shading on that, but for now we are done with that piece. Okay, while you have your white paint out still, I am going to walk you through how to fill in these engraved letters so that they're white. We're going to stain this piece, well, I think we're actually just painting this piece black. But because it's going to be black, it's going to be really hard to see these letters. So what we're going to do is we are going to take those engraved letters that look like that when they're done, and we're going to make them white so that we can paint over the top of this thing. You got this kind of, I joke and I call it my kitty brush. Okay, these brushes, this brush that I sent with you for this one, it's just kind of a brush like you would see kids use in elementary school. It's not fancy. There's nothing special about it. I buy these in mass bulk. So when you guys get them, everybody will probably get a different size because I buy like 600 at a time and they're assorted sizes. But really all we're going to do with this is work the white paint down into these letters. So it does not need to be a fancy brush at all. You guys probably have white paint left out on your workstation. I'm going to have to pour out a little bit more because I used my roller that already had white paint on it earlier. So what we're going to do here is you're going to take your brush, and I know these lights are kind of hard to see. You're going to dip it in the white paint. Okay, get some on there. Try to get your excess off. You don't want globs of white paint. And then this is kind of a process. You're going to press gently and kind of do this circle move as you press that white paint down into those engraved grooves, okay? We will work this kind of slow because what we're going to do is we're going to do, 2 or 3 letters, and then we're going to take that baby wipe and we're going to wipe that excess off. So I'm going to show you with one real quick. You should have gotten more than one baby wipe too, but baby wipes are something that I recommend you guys keep on hand for these projects. I try to send as many as I can, but I never know exactly how many you'll need. So we've worked that first layer down in there. Then you're just going to take that baby wipe and just wipe it off. So what you're doing there is you're wiping off the excess white so that we're not fighting the white on the board when we go ahead and paint it black, but you're really getting it down into that letter, if you can see that. So we're going to just quickly work our way through all the letters. Just press down gently, use that circular motion, and that really works it down into the engraved part of that wood. And then, depending on how fast you work, I'm going kind of fast, so I feel pretty safe that I could do, you know, these 3 letters pretty quick before I wipe it off. But then I'm going to just take my baby wipe and just start wiping that off. Now, it's okay if your wood is, you know, if you can see a little bit of the bleach look on the wood. It's okay if you don't get all that white off, but you just want to get as much off as you can. And with this, you're probably going to go back and do a second coat of this, because as it soaks in to those deep indentations where the laser engraved that, you will find that, you know, it starts to, it's not as colored as you originally thought it was. So this is why we don't use a fancy brush for this, because over time this will kind of tear this brush up. You'll still be able to use it for like painting your pumpkin and stuff, but it will over time tear that up because you're kind of pushing on it. So we will just replace those as we need to for projects. And with all of your paints that I send you in those bottles, we kind of have a standing thing where I remind you guys often, but if you run low on the white, the black, the brown, or the wood glue before I let you guys know that I'm replacing everybody's, which is generally only about once every 4 months. But if you run low before that, it's fine. Just let me know, and I'll be happy to ship out a new bottle of whatever you need with your next kit when it goes out. We don't ship them separate unless you want to pay shipping costs separate for it, but we will ship it out with your next kit. Obviously, like, don't go trying to paint your house with that little bottle of white paint. I probably can't afford to keep supplying you with it for that. But if you're, you know, kind of doing your kits, and some people just use a little bit more paint than others, that's no big deal. We went to doing that rather than sending just the little heat seal package every month with those base colors of white, black, and then I added in the stain brown this time, because there's less waste this way. You guys don't have as many of those packets to throw away and hit the landfill every single month. Those plastic bottles can be cleaned out and used over again. I don't ask you to return them to me simply because I ship out well over half of my kits per month. So if you ever wanted to wash those bottles out and drop them off with your old pizza boxes when you pick up your new kit for those local pickups, you're welcome to do that. I just don't require it because I know some of you, it's kind of a messy job to wash those out. So you can dispose of them if you want to, because we are only replacing those maybe every 4 months. But if you have another use for it, feel free to wash it out and use them again, because they absolutely can be washed out and used again. Okay, so I've got 1 coat on each of these. I do think I'm going to go back and do a second coat of white on each of these letters. I haven't been looking at the camera while I've been doing it, so I'm hoping, I'm going to try to pay attention this time. I'm hoping you guys can really see what I'm doing here. Not difficult, but just something that, you know, it really will make your piece pop if you get these letters painted up and looking, you know, looking sharp before we add that black color on here. I know every month I say, oh, I think this was my favorite kit. But I really do believe that this month is my absolute favorite kit. I bought the file from another small business. They are amazing, a mom-daughter team. And I just knew when I saw it that this had to be your guys' kit for August so that you could do it in September and start decorating with it. And it's just kind of that classic piece that really you're going to be able to use from September 1st all the way, you know, through the end of November. And so it's just a great fun piece for you guys to put out and keep out. Okay, so we've got this pretty much done. Let's set this over to the side, and we're going to go back to our, oh, this is another tip, guys. If you did not have a cup of water right in front of you, which of course I didn't because I forgot to bring it down. If you didn't have a cup of water right in front of you to rinse out your brush, take a baby wipe, a wet one, and kind of wrap that brush up in that baby wipe and just let that sit until you're done. And then you can go upstairs and wash it out, and it will still stay damp and you will not have dried paint in your brush. All right, let's pull back out our base layer piece and take a look. I feel like it looks pretty good. I am going to roll right over top of my original recipe once more, and maybe just the edges, and then we're going to be ready to move on with this. So, oh, I have a little bit of excess paint on there, so rub that off. Again, we're looking for light amounts of paint. Oh, yeah, there was excess on there. Light amounts of paint and light hand when you go over this. And if you do get one of these brushes or these foam rollers, make sure as light as you're going that you're also switching your directions, because that will make a difference in how your lines, your paint lines, stay on your piece. But yeah, that should be plenty of coverage for what we need. So I'm going to go ahead and close up my little white because I think I'm done with my white now. Oh, I might need some for highlighting later, but I've got this on my thing here. So, okay, now as you can see, I got a little heavy-handed with that white paint right through the middle of this. So I'm just going to scrape that out of those score lines so that when I'm lining my letters up here, it's super easy. And I don't have a lot of gunked up paint on there. These toothpicks are so handy. I always try to remember to put one in your kit if you have anything that has score marks like this, but occasionally I forget. So just know that A, you can keep these forever just by wiping the paint off, but also most of us have little wooden toothpicks in our house, and so that is another thing that you can use and make it really easy to clean that up. Okay, so now we're going to set this back off to the side again. We got to let it dry before we can do that light sanding on it. So if you're following along on your written instructions, we should be mostly down to step 5. We are going to work on step 5, we're going to work on painting the top of our banner here. Can we focus? Oh, I hate it when we cannot focus. Okay, we're going to work on painting the top of this banner black. We're going to paint all of our pumpkin pie letters black. And we are going to paint our frame black. So for this, you're going to want to get out your black paint. And again, I'm working off this piece of aluminum foil. You can work off of your paper plate, aluminum foil, this paper right on the table, whatever you're comfortable with. Put a little bit of black on there. We're going to also get our makeup sponge out. You will find that when I teach you to paint with makeup sponges, whether we're painting 3D pieces or we're stencil painting, which we do in this membership if you're brand new, I teach you to use the lightest amount of paint possible and layer. So light layers of paint will ensure that you don't end up with big globby messes. And also that if we're stencil painting, your paint won't go through the stencil and bleed. You'll have nice crisp letters. So we always use the big fat end of the sponge. Dip it in your black paint. Okay, you're going to have a chunk like this. And then we're going to find another section. It can be your aluminum foil, your paper plate, or your white paper. And you're going to dab. This is just real light dabbing. And what we're doing here is we're working it into the sponge And you can do that a couple of times till you get a good amount of paint worked into that sponge. Again, we don't want it dripping though. We just want it covering the ends of the sponge like you can see. And we're also offloading any extra paint at that point. Okay, so now we're gonna work on this banner first. We have the white all colored on the inside of our letters. We do not want to press hard as we're painting this banner in the black. If you're using a light hand and just dabbing on the banner, you're going to get coverage all over that banner, and it's not going to get too far deep into your letters. You might get a little bit. So see, I have like just a couple black speckles, but that's okay. That's not a lot. It's no big deal. If your banner is falling through, because these pieces are already cut, lift your hand underneath and kind of push that masking tape. Oh, there we go, right there. Push a little bit, and then you'll have that nice firm surface to just real lightly dab. And we're just dabbing the banner right now. Now you guys won't have to worry about being careful around your top banner because yours is placed down here. Doesn't matter if your pumpkin pie letters get black paint on them because they're going to be black anyway. We're going to move on and paint them next. And I wish that you guys could tell just how lightly I'm dabbing. I mean, it is so light. And this is probably why we don't use very much paint on our projects, because you are working so lightly with the sponge that you're not ending up with a ton of excess paint all over your piece. Okay, so that is our first coat of black. That looks really nice, doesn't it? Remember, this is a rustic piece. So you do not have to have a really strong, heavy coverage of black paint on there. You're just trying to kind of get that light coat on there. Now I'm going to move on to my pumpkin pie letters. Okay, same thing. And when you're doing this, because I've given you the piece that we cut those letters out of, you don't have to worry about getting paint all over this piece of wood because you're just going to throw the rest of it away when you're done anyway. These pumpkin pie letters, I want to have a good solid brown coverage on, or black coverage on, because it is going to help that rust technique to show up really, really well. So we will definitely do 2 coats of black paint on these. You can look at it. If yours are soaking up the paint, you might need to do 3 coats across them. Generally, 2 coats covers just about anything that we're doing, but I have had times before where I wanted it just a little bit darker. So you can see I'm just kind of real quickly moving through, covering these letters. Light coats of paint layered is always a better bet than heavy coats of paint. Okay, let's set this off to the side and let those dry real quick while we do our frame. Same concept. We're going to cover just the top part of the frame all the way around with black paint. The frame will also get our rust technique added to it. So I just want to get that good solid base layer on there before we add in that fun 3D element onto the frame. Now it looks like I'm using a lot of paint because I put it on here. This is the 3rd time, but look at that. It's literally like just 1 drop of black each time. So we're not really going through that much. Oh. I always have to remember if it's in the camera view or not. Sometimes I have to turn that around. If you are watching this tutorial and you feel so inclined to sprinkle this video on your Facebook page so that others can see it and find our company, we would sure appreciate that. For those of you who are maybe joining us for the first time, I think I introduced myself at the beginning, but I better do it again. My name is Jenny, and I am the owner of Esther's Nest Designs. We are a small handmade company located right here in central Illinois. You're actually joining me from my basement in Witt, which is the tiniest town ever, if you're not familiar with this community. And you are watching me paint our monthly project that's a part of the Nesting Box, which is our monthly DIY craft subscription box. Okay, so now we've got that covered pretty well. We're going to set that over to the side. Pull back our pumpkin pie letters and our Sold by the Slice banner. Again, with the Sold by the Slice banner, if you want to put a second coat on, that's fine. Very, excuse me, very light coats of black paint. You don't want anything too heavy so that you're not covering up all that beautiful white that you filled in already. Okay. Now we're going to go back over our pumpkin pie letters. We want a good solid coat of that black on those. I hope that everybody who's watching tonight is a follower of our Facebook page, Esther's Nest. We also have an Instagram page, Esther's_Nest. I have both of those pages linked up together on the social medias. And we have a website, Esther'sNestDesigns.com. The website is where we sell all of our product. We sell finished home decor as well as DIY kits like the one you're seeing me work on tonight. We have kits that are not a part of the membership that you're able to just buy whatever one you really like. And those are all for sale on the website. We also do, we have some custom apparel that we sell at different times of the year. I have a couple of t-shirts that are coming out with our fall collection when it releases very soon. I'm going to put one more quick coat on this frame. So those will be available as well on the website. And our fall collection should be releasing in about a week. And that will be full of finished home decor as well as some options for DIY pieces that we give you, the supplies. You can provide your own paint or you can purchase paint from us and be able to work on your own projects for your home. Okay, let's set those off to the side. Now I have a really magical trick, not really, but I use baby wipes to clean my hands in between working with black or white paint if I'm going to the opposite, just so that I know I'm not transferring that back and forth to my projects. So I'm going to just quick wipe my hands off and pull back out my backer board for the piece. Okay, in your kits, you guys will always receive a little piece of sandpaper. This piece of sandpaper is really used as a very, most of the time what you'll see us use it as is a way to just very lightly sand the top of your piece to kind of knock off what we call those little paint hairs. We are working with a birch plywood, so when you paint on top of that, it can have a little bit of a gritty feeling to it. So we just want to real lightly go across this and knock off that little bit of extra that's dried on there. And yes, it is loud for a minute. And it will just give it a very smooth feel when we're done. So I just kind of feel it as I'm going across it. That's it. You'll know when you feel it, but it's just very light, and then when you feel across it, it just feels smooth. It gives you a good surface to work on before we go on to what's next. Sandpaper will last easily the 4 months or so in between. So just, you know, use that, set it aside, know you're going to use that each month with your kit. Any paintbrush you have, any of the paintbrushes that I gave you, or any paintbrush that you have on hand, grab a dry brush, just dry, nothing on it, and just kind of work across any of the engraved or scored areas. All we're doing right now is any of that paint dust when we sanded that got down in there, we're just cleaning it out with that dry brush. All right, that's done. So if you are following along on your written instructions, we're now up to step 6. In step 6, we're going to use our chip brush and a tiny bit of the brown paint that we worked with already. This is your chip brush. The way that you know it's a chip brush is it has this really crazy wild hair. It's tough bristles and they're wild. They're never like neatly together. This is never something that you would use to like paint your wall with or anything. But this is really, it works really well for a dry brushing technique, which is what we're going to do going over top of our sign here. So you can see this is a white paint, but when we look at this piece, I hope you can see, kind of up through here, you can see the brown that we swiped across the whole piece to kind of give it that nice distressed look. So that's what we're going to achieve with this chip brush and the brown paint. So the chip brush is something that everybody should have now. If you ever end up needing to get another one, I do sell them on my website under our DIY section, and we have like some paint supplies set up, like different brushes and stuff. But really, Dollar General, Dollar Tree, Walmart, anywhere, you can walk in there and buy one of these for like $1. And you will use these on so many of the projects that I send you. Even projects that you may purchase from me that I don't use this on, you could totally choose to use this on. There's so many techniques you can use this chip brush for. So, okay, what we're going to do, we are going to use our brown paint and the chip brush, and we are going to do a dry brushing technique across the back of this whiteboard. So what we're trying to accomplish here is a very light distressing across the board. Or at least that's what I'm teaching you to accomplish. You may decide that you really love that distressed look and you want it heavy, in which case, you do you, girl. Whatever you want to do, however you want your piece to look, this is yours. Make it your own. But I'm going to teach you how to do it the way I do to get a very light look to it. So the biggest thing here is light paint, light paint, light paint. If you get too much paint on your brush, then you will immediately get it across your board too heavy, and you'll have to go back and repaint that board white to kind of even it out. So I'm going to try to show you how to do this the easiest way that I know how to get the lightest coat on here. But basically, when I'm doing this, I can't even emphasize to you how little amount of paint you want on here. If you get too much paint on there and you're questioning on your brush, is that too much paint? Do it on your paper first and see how much paint comes off on here before you move it to your board. You can always go over this. You can go over this 100 times, layering it to add more, but you can't take off too much. So what I'm going to do is just kind of ruffle up my brush, okay? Make sure that nothing's sticking together. I want those wild hairs everywhere. And I am going to get just the smallest amount of brown paint, okay? I don't even know if you guys can see that. Can you see like the smallest amount of brown paint that I got on there, okay? I'm going to come over here on my paper, and I'm going to start very light-handed, swiftly going back and forth with the brown. Okay, that tiny amount of light paint, look at how much brown it put on here. Okay, so I'm going to do that, keep working that. I got most of that work done into those bristles. I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, a little bit of brown paint again. And again, just real quickly, easily work it in there. Now I'm going to start, because I've looked at it and I don't feel like I have too much on the ends. So now I'm going to start on the piece from the edges. And I'm going to start quickly, but the lightest hand possible, brushing it across my piece from the edges. When you first start, if you have the lightest amount of paint on there, you're going to feel like, I'm not really getting any color. If you look at this right now, you're thinking, man, she's not really getting any color on there. That's okay. You can go back over here. You can pick up a little bit more of that, and then you can go back to your piece. Sometimes I will do this 4 or 5 times until I get the amount of color that I really want on there, okay? There we go. That's the look. Can you see that right there? Let me see if I can get it in focus. Oh, these lights are so harsh. I don't know if I can get it. Okay, maybe right there. You can start to see right here. Just that light amount, okay? So now I'm going to just start working that across from that edge. Maybe there you can see it. Let me see if there's anything underneath it. Can you see it there? All right, so that's what I'm going to do as I work this all across my edge. And each time I just keep sweeping it across the thing. Adding more paint when I know I need more until I've achieved the look that I want all the way across this board. Okay, you're starting to see that now, aren't you, girls? This is such a fun way to dirty up a piece. It makes it look like this is this really old piece that you found in Grandma's barn that she probably had in her kitchen when you were little, and you just found it and you decided, man, I really want to put this in my house. That's the look that you get when you use that dry brush technique. I wonder if I can turn these lights down and it will help you see that. Can you see it better without that light? I know I'm wasting your time, but I really want you to see it. There, you can see it a little bit more. Okay, so see, I just really lightly went across that whole thing. That one's too harsh. A little bit better maybe. Got some shadows, but that's the look I'm going for in step 6, is just sweeping that across there and dry brushing that across there. You still have the white background, but now you've added this element to your piece. You've added another layer that really makes it stand out a little bit more. Okay, I just looked at the time. We're only on step 7. And I've already been on here an hour, guys. This is terrible. I get this way every single time. So, okay. Our backboard, I'm going to set off to the sign. Oh, you know what? Step 7 is a repeat. We already did that. Sorry, I should have read that. Okay. What we're going to do now is work on this cute little pumpkin up here. All right. So for this, I'm going to tell you guys to pull out your angled brush and your brown brush that you, or your little blue brush that you painted with earlier. If you have your own stack of paint brushes, another brush that you might really like is more of a thinner lined brush. If you can kind of see that. Just to kind of do the edging on this. We're going to paint that pumpkin in right here on the backer board because it does not have a 3D piece that goes with it. You're also going to want to grab your little pouches of paint that came in that little cellophane bag. Okay, we've got 2 oranges, and until you look at them side by side, you think, oh man, they're the same color. This one is definitely lighter, this one is definitely darker. We're going to paint our entire orange, this lighter orange, and then we're going to do some shading with that darker orange. I promise you guys, this is way more paint than what you will need for this. We also have this little brown. You're going to put that off to the side. That's what we're going to use to create that faux stain technique. The brown that we'll use to fill in the stem of our pumpkin we'll just use some of that brown from our bottle that we did to stain with. So, okay, the way you open these paint pouches, grab your lighter orange paint. The way you open these paint pouches is to give them a shake. The heat sealed part goes at the bottom. You'll see there's kind of little tear corner on these. Shake it down, tear at the corner, and then squeeze that paint out onto a paper plate. Again, this is way more paint than what you guys need, I promise. And then you can discard the wrapper, but it's really hard to get just the right amount of paint on here. So the first thing we're gonna do, we are not gonna worry about any shading or highlighting yet. The first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna color in our orange. So we're gonna color in the folds, or color in our pumpkin. The folds, the orange color, the stem, the brown color, okay? So grab any paintbrush you wanna use. Does not matter what paintbrush, whatever you're most comfortable with. And we're gonna do the stem first. I will tell you that I like to use these thinner brushes and I outline it first and then fill it in. However you wanna do it is fine. I am just going to outline this and then I will go back and fill it in. I will tell you that if you are painting with paintbrushes and this is not something that you generally do, I suggest load paint on your brush and then gently touch the edge on a surface to get off that big clump of extra paint. If you are not used to working with brushes like this, it's very, very easy to get too much paint at first and it will kind of go outside those score lines and it's very frustrating. You will also see me turn my piece quite a bit. So like I'm working with it right there. Then I want to work on this other side, so I'll flip my piece around. I try to be conscious of that when I'm filming for you guys, but honestly, I just have to paint what's comfortable with my hand, with my hands. Otherwise, I won't get the look that I want. I'm also a very messy painter when I'm a brush painter, so I go very slow. But this is really just kind of like coloring inside the lines. It's not hard. Okay, so we've got our stem brown. We may go back and put another coat on that later. This is the kind of stuff that I promise you guys, I don't really know what I'm going to do until I see how it dries. So now, if you have a glass of water next to you, that's great. I'm going to have to go grab one in just a second before we start the highlighting because I definitely have to have water for that. So you will need water for that. But for right now, I'm just going to take a baby wipe and kind of wipe as much of that brown off of this brush as I can so that I can kind of line the pumpkin with the orange. So now grab your orange, grab whatever brush you're comfortable using, and let's line our pumpkin with this orange. And just like we talked about earlier, we really don't want to paint inside of those score marks. We kind of want to leave those divided, like as a divider, so leave those lines defined. If you get some paint in there, just grab out your little toothpick, no problem. The pumpkin is painted right here on the backer board, but there is that 3D banner. You don't have to paint this part because that 3D banner will go right on top of it. Let me see if I can zoom in for you guys just a little bit while we're working on this. Now this is one part where I wish I was techie enough to like speed this up as I paint in every fold of this pumpkin. I think that might be out of focus. Because I am just not very fast at this and you guys don't have to, you don't have to watch me paint every little piece of that pumpkin, but I don't know how to speed it up. So On your end, this is when you can start to fast forward. You know how to paint the pumpkin. You can just start to fast forward, and when you see me move on to the next step, you'll know you can stop the video again. I really wish that these kits, the subscription kit is priced at a price point where it was really priced based on just the wood blank and the paint. So when I decided to start doing all these cute little bonus brushes and tools and stuff, it became something that I just have to really watch how much money I spend on those, because the kit is just really not, it doesn't absorb that cost. So they're kind of bonus pieces that I just do on my own. So I wish that I could afford to buy you guys all really awesome sets of paintbrushes, but my hope is that if I just share with you the brushes that I like, or even just, because I buy a lot of my brushes on Amazon, and if I link them up for you, then if this is something that you enjoy doing and you know that you're going to keep painting and keep doing kits and stuff like this, then it's worth it for you to invest a little bit of money in these. And let me just say that you can get some really decent brushes very affordably. So you could get a set of, I'm not even sure what this brand is now, but these are ones I use often. You could get a set of these with probably 6 or 7 different sizes for like $10 on Amazon. You might be able to get them even cheaper than that. I just, I know what ones I use and I just keep going back to them. But then you would have all the sizes that you want, and you wouldn't have to worry about, I have a hard time finding the brushes that with all the different sizes that I can send you guys affordably. So I always like to tell you what I like to use, and then if this is something that you really enjoy doing these and you want to step up your game with some of your tools, then you have the ability to pick those up too. Maybe that's something that I'll try to do one day coming up, is just link up like my Amazon favorites for you guys, and then you could pick up anything that you might need or you might want. I send you in your kit everything you absolutely need to finish your kit, but sometimes there's just things that you might enjoy more. For example, the glue that I send you guys is great for your kits, but I've shared with you my favorite glue before. I've told you many, many times that if you are a regular subscriber and you really love to do my DIY kits, invest in one of these $14 bottles of glue. It will last, quite literally, probably a whole year, honestly. You could probably spend $14 and use it for a full year with the amount of kits that you might buy from me. And the glue is so awesome. So we haven't started any highlighting or shading yet, ladies. We're just painting inner pumpkin at this point. I am just much slower, probably much slower than many of you even. I am not a neat brush painter. I don't freehand much at all in life, which is why even like this kind of like color within the lines thing, I tend to paint slower. I'm also using a much smaller brush than I could be using because I am a messy painter, and I know that if I use a bigger brush, I will more than likely end up with it outside the lines of the pumpkin, which will frustrate me. So I tend to just use a smaller brush that I know I can control. All right, 2 more pumpkin folds. And when you're done, you're probably going to look at this and be like, this pumpkin looks great. We don't need to do anything else with it. But once I show you these 2 super easy techniques for shading and highlighting, and you see how much more depth and definition it can add to your piece, I swear you're going to want to go back and look at all your old pieces and be like, oh, where can I do that? Where can I add this in? Because it really does just add a lot. Obviously, I don't shade or highlight every piece that I do, because honestly, these little techniques, you could get lost in just adding all these little extra touches to pieces, and you can't do that. Like, you can't overdo every piece. Some pieces are just very simply done and it's enough. It gives you that statement that you want and it's enough. Other pieces, you like to add that little bit of extra flair to. So, okay, we've got a coat of the orange paint on there. I am going to go ahead and let that dry. If you need another coat of brown on your pumpkin stem, now would be a really good time to do that. This is one of those moments that you're going to appreciate having your paint apron, because when you wipe off your brush and you're ready to dry it, when you have that paint apron, you just like kind of lean it down on your apron and just brush it across there. I hope you guys will take some pictures in your paint aprons, post them onto the page. And I definitely want to see them get messy, girls. Paint aprons are not supposed to stay pretty. There is a reason that I chose white rather than black for these. And I know, because for me it's hard too. It was really hard in the beginning to think about getting paint on my apron, because I thought, oh, it's going to be ruined then. It is so not. It shows your creative side, and it shows me that you are enjoying what we're doing and that you are really putting the effort into this. So I want to see those aprons covered in paint in just a few short months, girls. Okay, so now, while our pumpkin is drying, you know what? Yeah, it needs to dry a few more minutes, and then I am going to put a second coat of paint on the pumpkin. I'm not going to do it as intricately as I did before, but I'm just going to fill in kind of the centers with the second coat of paint. But while this is drying, because it does need to dry before I can do that, I'm going to show you guys how to shade your cinnamon, clove, ginger, and nutmeg banner. Okay, so pull back out this piece, set this other piece over to the side, and let me show you what we're going for. So you can see the banner here is just stained, right? It looks nice. It's very cute. But when you add that shading to it, it kind of steps it up a little bit, right? So what we're doing here, thinking about where the banner has a natural fold in it, and we are going to add some darker brown paint in those natural folded areas, because the natural fold is where you're going to see a shadow kind of go across that. So for this, you're going to use that angled brush. Okay, everybody got a different size brush, because again, I ordered these in bulk. So some of your brushes are really small, some of your brushes might be a little bit bigger. I tried not to give anybody too big of a brush so that you could really get in here and work in this. But just know that no matter what size your brush is, you're going to be able to work with it. So don't stress about that. We're going to teach you how to work with it. I do not have a glass of water right here handy, so I am going to grab a baby wipe. I hope you guys have your glass of water handy, because this is when, oh, sorry guys, timer that it's time to go pick up my kid from football. Okay, this is when you're really going to use that water, because when we are shading, you have to have a wet brush to start with, okay? Actually, I do. I have a glass of drinking water. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get our brush wet to start with, okay? So dip it in your water, get it nice and wet, okay? Your brush is good and wet. Now set it off to the side while we mix up our paint to the color that we want it. Then we're going to go back to that brush, and I'm going to show you how to do this. So what we want for this is we want brown paint that's just a little bit darker than what we stained, so that we can get that shaded look. Rather than sending you a whole nother packet of paint for just the tiniest drop that you need for this, I just decided that I'm going to show you how to mix your brown paint just a little bit darker. So put a little drop of your black on your black side. We've still got brown over here on the brown side. And it doesn't matter what brush, grab any brush that you have in front of you. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull some of that brown onto a spot, and then we're going to take the tiniest little bit of that black and we're going to work it into that brown, okay? Tiniest bit of black, guys, remember. Tiniest bit of black worked into that brown. And it's going to give you that darker brown color. Okay, now, go back to your angled brush. Your angled brush should be wet. Check it, make sure that, you know, it's damp but not, you don't want it dripping, okay? If it's dried a little bit, get it wet again. Wipe it off just a little bit. You don't want it dripping. Have either a wet baby wipe close or have a paper towel that's damp close, because you got to keep your brush wet when you're doing this to get it to glide smoothly. Okay, up at the top of your brush, the very top of the angled brush, we're going to load the brown paint up there. This is called loading the toe, which I don't really ever use these terms, but artists will use them because they know. So you're going to load that up with brown paint. You can test it on your paper first. You want to kind of test it and see how it slides across your paper. You want it to slide very easy across the paper. If it doesn't slide easy enough, get some more water on there and slide it across. The idea is going to be, and if you need more paint, that's fine. The idea is going to be that the darkest part of the paint will be at the top. That's why you're only loading the top of that brush, okay? And then it's going to kind of watercolor down the brush behind that because your brush is wet. Let's start with the simplest part, which would be up here at the top of that banner. Just touch the top of that brush on there first and just kind of gently sweep it across there. Okay, see what we're starting to get there? That's how we're getting that. Depending on how big your brush is, and depending on how much you want to shade, how dark you want to go, how deep you want to go, you can turn your brush either way. You can turn your brush sideways to make it a little bit thinner like I did right there, or you can keep your brush straight up and down to make it a little bit thicker. I kind of adjust it as I'm going across here because I don't want it to be like a perfect line. But you can see, right? You guys can start to see how it's just making that shade on the top of the banner. So it's kind of as if the banner's up there and it's waving and you're hitting that little shade part right at the top, and it's making the top of your banner just a little bit darker than the rest of it. Now, if your paint starts getting a little bit too light, remember, always add your black back in there. Keep your brush wet. You see where I keep dipping it into that wet baby wipe or wet paper towel, whatever you have. The wet brush is the most important part of this, to be honest. And then just gently pull that across. All right, can you see what we're doing here, guys? Nice little shade across the top. So we're going to shade the top, the bottom, then we're going to kind of work in the corners of the folds right here and over here, and then kind of at the edges across these. Pause this video, rewind, fast forward, whatever you need to do, as many times as you need to do it, to where you really see and understand what we're doing here. So on these edges, I kind of kept my brush straight up and down because I wanted a real thin shade area right there, okay? Now on this fold right here, I'm going a little heavy with my shading. Can you see that? Because I'm thinking that is probably where, when it's folded like that, it's going to look like there's a pretty deep shadow right there. Nothing about this part of the process is perfect, at least not at the stage we're at, guys. If you have an art degree like my sister, then sure, you can be perfect at this. But we don't. Most of us are just hobby crafters, moms, wives, grandmas, daughters, all just looking for something to fill our creative void and decorate our house with, right? So perfection is not what we're going for. We are really just going more so to learn a new technique, to get to play around with it a little bit, and to put a piece in our house that we can look back at and say, hey, I made that. How cool is that? And what is so cool about this process is that every single one of us, so if 40 people made this today, we could all post pictures, which I hope we do, by the way. I want you guys to all post pictures when you're done on the page. And everybody's piece will look different. This is one of the reasons that I just cannot wait until we can get our building back on track, so that some of these fun things we can do in person and together with you guys. How fun would it be to be just sitting around work tables together, painting, kind of seeing how everybody else's piece looks while you're working on your own. All right, that is my shading for that banner, you guys. Now, I'm gonna pop this out because I really want you guys to see what it looks like. When you do this, all I do is push it through a little bit and then turn it over, grab that masking tape and pull it off. And then it will pop through really easy. Sometimes I think it's hard to see when it's in the void, but look at that. Now that you pop that out, isn't that cute? You guys, look at all that. Like, we did that. You did that. So now that it's out, you can look at it and you can say, hey, you can get a little bit more water. If you feel like it's dark in some areas, and you can run that water across there, and that's going to pull that paint down like that watercolor technique, and it's going to, you know, change the look of it just a little bit. This is where I have to stop myself, girls, because I could sit here and I could work on pieces like this for hours. I could just keep playing with it and just keep shading it. And then if you really wanted to get fun with this one, you could add some highlights. You could mix in a little bit of white paint, real light, and you could add some corner highlights like the sun is hitting it. But I'm happy with the way that looks, so I'm going to move that off to the side and know that I'm done with that one. Okay, now go ahead and take that angled brush and wash it back out. Rinse it in your water, dry it, get all that brown paint off, because we're going to work with orange next, and we don't want to mix that brown in with the orange. So, all right, we've got that clean. We're going to move it off. So now I'm going to go back to my thicker blue brush that we used. I'm going to go back to my main orange paint, and I am just going to do a second coat on the areas in the center that I feel like don't look like they have very good coverage. I am not going to outline the whole pumpkin. I'm not going to put a second coat on every inch of the pumpkin. It's mainly going to be these center folds that are bigger, that you can see more of that white peeking through. Now remember, if you get a little bit of paint in this white banner area, it's no big deal, girls, because you're going to glue this banner right over top of that. Oh, look how cute that's going to look! I love it. I still get excited about these projects, you guys. This is why I love to do what I do, because I still surprise myself. Okay, so I feel like that is good. I've got coverage. I'm good with that. So remember, any of these brushes, make sure you're either rinsing them out or putting them on inside of wet baby wipe until we're done with this, because you want to make sure that it does not dry on your brush and ruin paint drying on your brush. So, okay. I just added a little bit more paint on that, so we probably need to let that dry before we go back and highlight and shade on that. What we can do is we can glue our Sold by the Slice piece onto our backer board because that piece is completely done. I choose not to add any rust to this piece. If you guys decide to add rust to it, you can. But if you're not going to add rust to it, you want it to look just like mine did, then just go ahead and pop it out and grab your glue, and we're going to glue it right on there because that piece will not really be in our way. This is that glue that I tell you guys about that I love so much. It's called Stick Fast by CA Adhesive. It's about $14 for a bottle of this on Amazon, but it lasts forever. You use such a tiny amount on it. And so this is the stuff that I'm saying if you really hate working with like those little things of super glue or wood glue, and you know you're going to keep doing my DIY kits, then it's probably beneficial to you to go ahead. I could never afford to send each of you a $14 bottle of glue, but you could definitely put that in your cart and purchase it, and you would use it over and over again. And that stuff will work on definitely a lot more than just wood. So all I did there was I put some glue on there, I lined it up on the score marks in the bottom so you know exactly where to put it, and now I'm pressing it down for just a second. By the time we're done with this, our pumpkin should be ready for some highlighting and shading. Okay, so now we are going to move this, whatever you were working with your black, white, and brown paint, we're going to move that off to the side. We're going to bring our plate back over here. Okay, we have our original, this is just my wet baby wipe or paper towel. Put that on the side of your plate. We have our original orange right there, and then we have our darker orange. So let's go ahead. I want to make sure everything's in the camera view. Let's put our darker orange on the other side of the plate. And these really are very close in color, and I understand that, but they will show up differently on the pumpkin. Okay, so we've got our lighter orange, our darker orange, and then we will put, I want to put just a little shot of white paint on the plate as well, okay? Let's put a little shot of white paint on there because we're going to use that for some of our highlighting. There is a little gnat flying around in here, and oh, there it is. Did we get it? All right, we might have got it. That was kind of driving me crazy. All right, let's look at this pumpkin up close again. So what we're going to do with this pumpkin is we're going to add highlights to the bottom parts of the folds, or I'm sorry, shadows, like shading to the bottom parts of the folds, and we're going to add highlights to the top. This is not hard. It's the same concept that we just followed with filling in, with shading this piece, but we're going to do both. We're going to do shading and highlighting on our pumpkin because I kind of like to think about if you're in the pumpkin patch and you think about how a pumpkin is sitting, the shadows are kind of casting upwards from the bottom, but the sun is generally shining down on the pumpkin, and it's got the highlights kind of on the top. So that's the way that we're going to work through with this. Start again, angle brush, clean angle brush. I have to watch how I'm doing this so you guys can see what I'm doing because I don't always work within the camera view. All right, clean angle brush, get it wet. Okay? See all that water right there? We got it wet. Okay, now dip in to your dark orange paint. Okay? Try to just load the top as much as you can. Do that whole loading the toe thing. And then start all the score marks, working your way down. Darkest paint out, and the lightest part of your brush where more water is in. Now, depending on how heavy you painted your main orange color, you may need to darken this up a little bit. I did paint mine pretty heavy, so I'm going to add a little drop of black paint over here. We're going to do the same concept. I'm going to take just a little bit of black. I'm going to bring it over and drag it into my orange over here. And I'm going to mix that until I feel like I have a dark enough color to shade with. You may not know until you get it on your pumpkin, but I definitely feel like that's a shade darker. So now, get your brush wet again. Wet brushes always will work the best with this. Okay. Start going down. If you get it underneath your pumpkin, use a baby wipe to start pulling that up. All right. You might have to move your hand around. Oh, that's it right there. That's the color I was wanting to achieve. It is so hard to see in here. We have got to figure out the lighting. Can you see on the bottom right there where I'm getting that darker look pulled across? All right. Just pulling that down. The darkest, thickest being at the bottom because that's where you think the shadows are going to be cast the most. Don't worry about it being perfect. Preferably this isn't perfect. Shadows are never perfect. See, that is so dark it's almost a brown. I might have been able to teach you guys how to do this with brown paint and I wouldn't have even had to send you the other orange. Okay, can you start to see that? See how it just looks thicker at the bottom? It looks like there's another layer to the paint. Okay, now we can still do some shading at the top. We just don't want to do the very top parts of the pumpkin. Well, we can go over it with white, so you can technically do the very top parts. It just depends on how much you enjoy this shading. But when I'm shading the top, I'm shading the folds more so because I'm thinking about how those folds kind of overlap and they lay over different sides of the, they kind of cover the pumpkin for that little area. Oh man, I think I'm even going to like this shading more than my other one. All right, get your brush wet and now smooth out those shades. Don't just have that paint on there. Lots of extra water if you need it. Kind of pull that into the rest of the pumpkin. This is that watercolorish technique that goes into this, and boy, does it add dimension to your piece. Guys, how good does that look? I love that. And this is where I get in trouble, you guys, because I sit here and I just keep working it, and I just keep working it. And it's like I've worked on a pumpkin for over an hour, and I know I don't have enough time to just keep doing that. Okay, now, if you really like the variation color in your pumpkin, you can add a little bit into the center. Don't overdo this. Way lighter with the color, way more water on this part, okay? I am pretty happy with how that pumpkin shaded out. This pumpkin that I did before, I did in a much lighter orange color. This one, I decided to add more dark to it, and I love that. But this just comes to show you, the more white that you add, we haven't put any white in this yet, but the more white you add, the lighter your pumpkin's going to be. The more dark you add, the darker it's going to be. So, okay, that's all the highlights I'm going to do, mainly because if I keep highlighting you guys, we're never going to move on and finish this. I'm glad I brought that glass of water to drink. All right, clean your brush. And now I'm going to show you how to add in some highlights, okay? Again, wet brush. Little bit of white, little bit of orange. You never want to highlight just white. You always want to add a little bit. You just want to lighten up your color. It can be a super light version of your orange color, but don't go in with just white or you'll probably be unhappy with the way it looks. Okay, so we've mixed up that super light color. Get your, make sure your brush is nice and wet. And now we're going to just go streaks on the top of the pumpkin, okay? See how we're just casting the highlight onto that. We're just casting the sun, the light that comes from the sun. I sound very philosophical right now. I'm not really, y'all. Look at that. It's so easy. And we just literally just casted that right on the top of that, and it's just stunning. Like it has so much dimension. Right now, I want you guys to pause your screen, rewind back to that plain pumpkin that we did that looked okay, right? It looked good. It was just an orange pumpkin with a brown stem, and we thought, huh, this looks okay. This looks good. And then fast forward back to this and think, oh, it's like emerald. Like, bam, we just took it up a notch. So, okay, I love this. Now, I'm going to go in, and I have to re-wet my brush because I'm getting so excited that I'm talking too much, girls. And I'm going to add a little bit of extremely light orangey white to the base of our stem, okay? This is way lighter than what I added to the pumpkin. Just adding a little bit, just going right on the edge of that stem, that it turns that way so it's kind of like the light's just shining on it just a tiny bit. I think if you get to the pumpkin patch right midday when the light's just hitting it perfect. Right? And now we've knocked that stem up. We've made it look excellent too. So, okay, I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you loved learning how to do some of these highlighting and shading. This is something that I would encourage you to practice with. Just anything. Even just draw a pumpkin on a piece of paper and then just grab your brushes and your paints and just keep practicing with it. Or better yet, step up to a candy corn. Candy corn, you're going to use yellow, white, and orange, right? Practice the shading with that. Go with more of a watercolor look. Just play with it. And you're going to find that you really can change the look of every single piece by just adding in these little extra touches. Okay, I have talked your ear off, girls, and we are not even to the faux rust yet. We are at an hour and a half. This video is going to take forever to load. I need to hurry my hind end up. But I knew this would be a long one because I'm so excited, you guys. All right, go ahead and grab your banner that we already did. This is your spice banner. Go ahead and glue it down onto our pumpkin. Okay. Is that not, I'm sorry, you guys. I can't get over it. It's gorgeous. I just love it. I love, love, love it. I'm going to put my banner a little bit low on there. Okay. So good. So good. If you ever do what I just did and you get your banner a little bit low, take that angle brush and cut right in there. And just fill in that tiny little bit of white space that shows. And then you don't have to worry about it. Doesn't that look good? Okay. Guess what? It's time to learn how to create faux rust. Okay. So for this, here's what we're going to use. You can use your paper plate. You can... Actually, I'm going to use my paper plate, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that over and just kind of create a whole nother little side there. So what we need for this is you need your cinnamon, which I have mine in this little container here. You guys have it in a little twist off lid. You need your stencil brush. Hold on to this because we will use this again in the future. Yes, this will get very gunky today, but it's okay because they will wash out, no problem. Start with your pumpkin pie letters and have your frame handy. We are going to rust our pumpkin pie letters and our frame. Here's what we're working on again. You can kind of see how we created that faux rust on the letters, and then we did edges of the frame with that. Stencil brush, cinnamon, nutmeg paint. This, you will see this paint has kind of that orangey undertone texture. This is the easiest thing you're ever going to do, you guys, but it's so fun. It is messy, so enjoy. This is a time you get to play. But just know that your brush, you can wash it all out when you're done. Okay, first thing I want to do, I like to start with just a little bit of dampness on my brush, okay? Not soaking wet. Get it just damp, just at the end. Doesn't need, you can kind of see my drops on there. Wipe it on your hand like that. Work it in. Doesn't need to be soaking wet, just it's not stark dry, okay? Dip your paintbrush in your nutmeg paint. Dab it a few times just to work it down in those bristles, okay? Now, anywhere on your letters, you can rust any part. You can see on here that we rusted every letter a little bit, but we didn't rust the whole letter, right? So we just did the corner of the P, the bottom of the U, a piece here and a piece here. Wherever you want to rust is fine. Work your nutmeg into there. Decide what part of the P you want to rust, no problem. Dab it on there. Dip your wet paintbrush into your cinnamon, okay? See, it's super globby. Kind of dab it on your paper to work it in there. Dip that cinnamon, start dabbing it right on there. This is something you don't really want to work it too terrible much, or your cinnamon will fall off. But you're going to have a lot of extra cinnamon on there when you first do it. As you reload paint and cinnamon, you're going to find that you've got a globby mess. It's okay. This brush will clean, I promise. You just have to have enough paint to be able to, for the cinnamon to stick to. If you don't have enough paint for the cinnamon to stick to, then it will kind of all fall off. So there are times that you might have to go back and put a little bit more on there. If your brush gets too glumpy, just kind of, and you can even pour a little bit of cinnamon out. That is a lot easier to work with. See how globby it gets? But that's okay. You can always clean it later, guys. I try to put the cinnamon in different places on each letter, just because, you know, I don't want it to always look the same, but it is such a fun technique. I just absolutely love doing this. And when I learned how to do this from another maker, I was like, I have to do this with my girls. I just knew you guys would love doing this as much as I do. It's just something different, you know? That's what these boxes are about, is just to give you time to relax. See how globby my brush is getting over here? But it's okay. That will all wash out. Okay, so we've added cinnamon to these letters. We're going to set them aside and let them dry. While they're drying, we're going to add just a little bit of rust to our frame. I don't really want my whole frame rusted. I just want to do like some of the edges, key parts. add as much as you want or as little as you want. This is your piece. Make it fit with your vibe. Make it fit with your home decor. Just have fun with it. The cinnamon, you could probably create the look of the rust with just the paint. But the cinnamon comes in where it gives it that little 3D texture. And also, it makes your piece smell amazing. Like, this piece smelled for probably 2 weeks after I made it. Can't really smell the cinnamon as much right now, but for like 2 weeks after I made it, it smelled. And it smelled amazing. I absolutely loved it. So this is how you create that faux rust technique. Now, if you guys want to do this on any projects you have at your house, and I'm going to tell you what, before I move on, I'm going to go ahead and clean up this gunky cinnamon mess because I don't want to get it on my white backer board. Your stencil brush that has all that in it, wash it with soap and water, dish soap, Dawn, whatever. It will all come out. You'll be able to reuse that stencil brush over and over again. So no sweat on that. What was I saying right before I said that about that brush? I don't know. It'll come back to me, girls. I don't know. That's like a meme, right? Me in the middle of Wednesday night when it's been a long week and there's a long week more to go. All right, so I'm going to pull this off because it's really covered in paint and yuck. And that's how you clean up. Now, I'm going to pull this piece back and we're just going to start gluing everything on here. Doesn't it look beautiful? Oh, I love that pumpkin, you guys. Go ahead and pull your masking tape off the back of the wood piece that your letters are cut out of. And do it, your letters will, you might have to do it like partially sitting down because your letters will start to fall. But then you can just kind of lay your letters on there until you're ready to glue them on, which I will probably just start gluing them on as I set them down. But look at that, you guys. Doesn't that look awesome? I love it. I would be careful with it still at this point. I wouldn't press down on the cinnamon parts. And I would be careful with it still at this point that that the letters might move just a tiny bit still. Or I mean, be wet just a tiny bit still until that paint really dries. But you can definitely glue it down. That's no problem. And so all I'm doing is I'm pulling that tape off from the back and just letting the letters fall out one by one so that they don't kind of crash everywhere. And I take a chance at losing a lot of my cinnamon. But once it dries, as long as you're not like rubbing right over the cinnamon part, it's going to stick on there pretty good. And like on this, I can lightly rub over it. Can't see what I'm doing. On this, I can lightly rub over it. I can feel the texture of the cinnamon, but it's not taking it all off of there, so that's nice. In and an eye. One of the things for new members about the membership is that we have a really wide variety of projects. This is by far our most in-depth project that we've done as far as painting goes. Now, we've done projects where I've taught you how to make a bow. We've done projects where we've worked with greenery. So it's just, we're trying to include like all kinds of different crafting techniques in what we do so that you have an opportunity to learn a lot of different things. I will give you guys a heads up. We are coming up in the funnest months. So this is our project for August. which you have right now to decorate with in September. Your September box will come out around the 25th of this month, and it is going to be a Halloween project. But here's the thing. Some of you guys love Halloween, and some of you don't. I'll be honest, I'm not a Halloween lover. I really don't like it. I never liked it as a kid. I still don't like it as an adult. I do decorate for Halloween very tastefully because my kids enjoy it, you know. I mean, my kids, when Cole was little, and definitely Jacob still, like to trick or treat. And we like to have candy for kids to come by and stop by our house and all. And so I do decorate just a little bit for Halloween, but I don't do a lot. And I definitely am not the girl who does like the big ghoulish displays. I have friends who do, and oh my gosh, they go so out of their way to make these amazing displays. And they're so cute. Like, some of them are straight up scary, but I just don't enjoy the holiday that much to decorate like that. So when I say we have a Halloween project coming up, let me just let you know it is a very family-friendly Halloween project. It is something that you will hang on your door. You'll probably want to put it, I just told you it goes on your door. I'm sorry, girls. I just let out part of the secret. Anyway, you'll probably have it up for the whole month. It's functional as well as cute, and but it's not scary. It's not ghoulish. It's just a fun little Halloween piece. More celebrating the kiddos who love Halloween so much. So that's coming up in your September box, which I'll be giving a sneak peek about that soon. So I guess I really didn't reveal too much. Then your October box will be more than likely something themed for Thanksgiving. Your November box will be Christmas themed. Your December box will be, oh, by the way, I'm just gluing on the frame now. Your December box will be winter themed. And then we will be ready to kick off the new year. One of the projects in the very first part of the new year that I'm hoping to do, hoping meaning if the supplies are readily available to me, then we will do it. But with all these shortages with COVID, I don't want to promise you guys until I know I can get them. But my plan is that we're going to learn macrame together as a part of a craft. So think kind of a farmhenian, so boho, farmhouse, something with macrame. That's what I'm wanting to do somewhere in like maybe January. But that will just depend on the projects or the supplies that we can get. You guys, we're all done. 1 hour and 47 minutes. I know, I'm so sorry it took us so long. But if you hung out with me this whole entire time, thank you, thank you, thank you so very much. If you fast forwarded and rewind and whatever, then kudos to you too, because this was a long time for me to paint and talk. But this is your finished piece for fall. I love this piece. I feel like we learned a lot this month. We got to work with some new tools. We learned some new techniques, and I hope that you guys walk away feeling like I taught you some things that you can use on projects other than just this one. So if you guys have any questions, always send me an email, ester'snestdesigns@gmail.com. You can also Facebook message me on the business page on Esther's Nest. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook stories, as we do a lot of our updates there throughout the weeks. And I will be back in just a few short weeks to show you guys your next project. So, hope you had a great night. I hope you enjoyed this piece, and I'm going to let you go.